Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review for Tower of God Chapter 457 or Season 3 Episode 40. Are we at 40? Yeah, we're on 40. I had remembered we were on 40, but I was like, is that last week's or is that this week's? Either way, I actually really loved this one. This one had me really hyped up. I feel like it was better than last week's, which I liked last week's. I just felt like some of the others had been stronger, like, I don't know, just generally it's been very, very good, so it's kind of pedantic, if I'm using the word properly, to compare them too much because they've all just been really good. But this one got me hyped up in a way where I was like, I was reading and I was reading and I wanted to keep reading, and then it ended and I was stuck just like, well, now I'm going to wait for the next one. Sorry again about this video being up kind of late though. I wasn't expecting it to be. It's a thing though with just lately I've had a ton of like needing to do my ordinary things that I do outside of YouTube in real life, but in addition to that, being around family and Christmas shopping and everything, and this week coming I'm going to be traveling a lot for holidays and stuff. So because of all of that, I'm just kind of struggling through December, and it'll probably be a good few weeks before I really get everything back on track as they should be. And speaking of that, real quick before I get into this, just to update you on some things. So I'm going to be moving the One Piece and Boku no Hero Academia reactions to Monday. That means Tower of God reaction is going to probably be up before those two. I'm either going to do it Sunday night or Monday morning. Once the chaos and busyness is settled, just try to get it done as soon as possible. Whether that's Sunday night, whether that's first thing Monday morning. Just going to try to do that as soon as possible. So these reviews, since I'm going to be having 3 videos on Monday, or maybe split between Sunday and Monday somehow. The reviews are going to probably, hopefully, be on Tuesdays. But again, if not, if I can't get them done in time for Tuesdays, then I'll probably still just shoot for Wednesday. But I'm feeling like I'll probably be able to do them Tuesdays, because normally the problem is Mondays I record the reaction to this and I record the Magical Girl Raising Project video, and then my goal is to do the Magical Girl Raising Project video on Tuesday and then somehow do this on Tuesday after that. That's why sometimes it ends up falling to Wednesday, even when I am caught up on things. But I think I might move the day that Magical Girl Raising Project is on, so if I move that and that's not on Tuesday anymore, then there's nothing else really taking up my time on Tuesday for me to not get this done. So yeah, just keeping you all completely updated, since I have decided to change that just as of like last night, pretty much. But yeah, either way, let's talk about this actual chapter a bit more. It was legitimately really hype. I really, really enjoyed it. So starting from the beginning, something that I mentioned with the big giant beastie snake before, that I got clarified a bit, because I was like, oh, he's one of the 23 beasts. I don't remember how many branches there were, but thank you. I think it may have been Lazy, might have been the first one, to correct me in the comments, or to remind me in the comments. And of course, then later on, when I looked up the Lopobia family for something else, I had to look them up for something, I was able to, of course, confirm what they said. That, yeah, they said before there's 20 branches, so that makes me think maybe 3 of the great beasts actually died or were killed somehow. We saw that this one could withstand that huge, massive attack that came from Dowan, and then also an attack from Cha, so it's pretty damned strong. But yeah, maybe 3 of them died at some point. We know that the guy mentions that one of his siblings was killed, so perhaps that sibling is one of the 3 that are now, that didn't get a chance to become branches. Or maybe the family head just kept 3 for himself, who knows. Hindluk, Kun Hindluk, I was just thinking he looks more and more like Kelhelm. Going back through it, I realized, okay, he's not Kelhelm, but he looked so much more like him, because last time he didn't have pointed ears at all, but then this time there was a panel of him where he definitely had pointed ears. But yeah, Snake gets back up after that attack. It's super, super strong. We get the confirmation that each of the 23 beasts has been assigned an anima that is a direct descendant of the Lopobia family head. So maybe 3 of those anima were killed, and the beast just, you know, there's a lot of possibilities. If the 3 anima were killed, the beasts could have been killed too. That's one possibility. Another possibility, the animal were killed and the family had just decided to keep those three for himself. Or possibly even the three of them were killed and somebody else took that great beast. So there are three great beasts that once FUG's side of thing killed the anima, they took control of it. That could totally be possible. But we learned that the one controlling the snake is the eighth son. And I think they said... I don't remember what branch they said they were last chapter, but I think they said like the 20th branch or something. So, yeah, 8th son didn't correspond to the 8th branch, so I guess it's not ordered in that way. But either way, we have an attack from the Fisherman Cha of the Hidden Grove, and the attack is called Genesis, which is interesting because we also have the battle itself, or the war kind of being called Genesis, the time period in general. So it's interesting that Cha has an attack named that, and also the way that they say he's not only the leader, technically co-leader with Doan, but he's a descendant of the first man, which is interesting. And the whole Genesis thing, descendant of the first man, it's like sort of getting into some, I don't want to say biblical themes, but it's kind of like we have these different naming conventions and stuff that connect back to various things, and it kind of feels very much like it's sort of referencing that. So it seems interesting that the time period's called Genesis, the attack is called Genesis chapter 1, and the guy is a descendant of the first man. We get some more info on Doan. Doan is a knight of the kingdom of Dowa, which is one of the 5 flower nations. And Doa is surrounded. So the deal is Zahard wants certain warriors sealed in exchange for peace. Zahard could try to wage this war, or he could go for the peaceful coexistence route. So he decides what he wants in exchange for that is for certain warriors to be sealed. And Doan is one of the ones that's been decided. One of the ones that Zahard purposefully wants to seal. So that's really cool that she's that important that Zahard wanted her sealed away. And also her kingdom gave her up and said, yep, seal her, do it. But Doan mentions that she became a knight and became a ranker in order to follow in her father's footsteps after her father died fighting Zahard. Now we don't know if it's like fighting Zahard as in like legitimately fighting him. Probably not, probably just fighting against Zahard's forces, but her father was a knight and a ranker and he died, so that's why her and her sister, Kane, decided to become knights and rankers for the kingdom of Dowa themselves. So if the kingdom's destroyed, then the whole thing she fought for would be pointless anyway. She mentions that her family can control Flower Shinsu. That's interesting. We have a funny scene with Cha liking her. I think that comedy, sometimes comedy in Tower of God can be a bit hit and miss. Sometimes it feels a little forced and stuff, where Tower of God's just one of those series that isn't a comedy series. So sometimes when there is comedy, it works, and sometimes when there is comedy, like Hell Joe, I remember being a really funny character a lot. But sometimes comedy just doesn't work. And it's sort of like, I would say it's much, much better than Attack on Titan, but I was going to say it's a similar thing where Attack on Titan is such a kind of serious series that when they do comedy, it often seems like so out of place and just not funny and cheesy and awkward. So that's like, it's much, much better than the attempts at comedy. I won't even call it actual comedy in Attack on Titan. But yeah, it's sort of that same feeling where Tower of God's just not really a comedy series, so a lot of times it can feel out of place, but I thought the stuff with Cha liking Doan was really fun. And it sounds so juvenile to be like, oh, he likes her. It's like middle school all over again, but I don't know how else to say it. He had a potentially romantic attraction to her. I guess that's, I don't know. But either way, Doan, before being sealed away, meets with the king. And the king didn't seem like a terribly bad person, which I think maybe is sort of showing how is meant to show us as readers how the kingdom has descended into what it is now, where it was a legit kingdom, and the king was this seemingly good person, and now it's descended to the point where the chairman is not cool or good at all, and again, he is just a chairman of this wall where these people are stuck living at, and it's not the glorious kingdom it once was, for sure. But the people of Dowa, we learn again more information from Sooo telling this story now from her point of view. The people of Doha moved to the wall, and the king became a chairman. Also, after all this went down, Cha fought alone against Zahard's forces, killed a bunch of people, then disappeared, and then reappeared again just to say, hey, seal me up. And the idea is maybe he wanted to be sealed so that he could wake up at the same time whenever Doan does. So after that, I love this part of the story. It's so good. The survivors of the Hidden Grove fell together under Kel-Helem as their leader. And I love that. Kel-Helem is just such a badass character. The more and more we see and learn about Kel-Helem, I love. Kel-Helem has become one of my favorite characters. Now, of course, there are characters I like more. Like, I'm a huge fan of White. I'm unironically starting to really like Caliban. There are just tons of other characters in the series that I've always been big fans of. But I'm actually just... Kel-Helem is so cool. He's jumped up to one of my favorites very quickly. So they fell in under Kel-Helem. Now this is the panel where I learned that, okay, Kunhindluck isn't Kel-Helem, because we see Kel-Helem leading the group there, and it looks like Kunhindluck is on the far left side of the panel. We just kind of see like a tiny portion of his face and his shoulder, but the shoulder seems to be wearing the same shirt that Kunhindluck was wearing earlier in the chapter. But also at that point, when they fell in after him, it was after he gained the ability to see destiny. He made a plan to kill Zahard himself. He's like, I'll turn the tide of this war by killing... I want to learn the backstory. Why is he so devoted? What's his beef with the 10 families, where he decided, I'm going to fight in this war way back at Genesis. I'm going to try to kill Zahard himself. I want some more Kel-Helem backstory, but it's so cool. And to a lot of people's surprise, they actually made it to Zahard himself. Like, he led this team of really badass people, and they confronted Zahard himself. And when that happened, everyone except Kel-Helem was either killed or captured. His entire team wiped out in that way. So, of course, sooo theorizes at least that it's at least a possibility that because Zahard can also see destiny in the way that Kel-Helem does, Zahard could have kind of planned the whole thing. He could have planned it knowing that Kel-Helem would get there, be drawn in, and then his plan was to crush Kel-Helem's confidence, was to show him how weak he was compared to Zahard by killing or capturing all of his allies in front of him, and then we don't know how Kel-Helem escaped or if he was just let go. So basically Zahard could have planned this entire thing just to try to crush his confidence, so it's cool after that to see that he's still sort of fighting for FUG and the peace and coexistence and all this. So it's pretty interesting, even though he isn't trying to stop the Empire in the same way anymore, the way that he's fighting back. Kel-Helem is so cool. I love it. But also another reason that their plan failed was that they were betrayed by somebody on their team. And the eyes of the person who betrayed them in that silhouette look very similar, and some people brought it up in the comments too. Of like the live reaction, some people have brought it up. The eyes of the silhouette are very similar to the eyes of the silhouette of the squadron commander that we saw, I believe it was last chapter. Now, this could be a huge coincidence. I think the odds of it being a coincidence are extremely high, because I think maybe sooo was just drawing a silhouette to do both, and maybe sooo just doesn't have a whole lot of different variety in the silhouettes of random characters we're not meant to see yet to draw, but the two silhouettes are similar and do have similar eyes, so it is a possibility at least that this new squadron commander that took over after Caliban is the traitor. But either way, very, very cool. Again, we get all this new info for sooo to eventually try to pay off. Love it. But it was at that time, I love these info dump chapters. I find myself, these are some of the chapters, like even in the past, that I've given the most glowing reviews of. After that, the Empire started building their walls, and the people who moved to those walls were guaranteed peace. That's their area of coexistence, is, hey, move into this wall, you can live in the city there, and you will have peace. So, eventually, these walls, even though it was all about peace and coexistence, they were dominated by Zahard, because it's basically like, okay, you have freedom from Zahard's empire inside that wall, but everywhere else is Zahard's empire, and Zahard's empire could crush the wall if he wanted to. So is it is it really even like freedom there or peaceful coexistence anymore? You're basically still being oppressed by Zahard's empire. And to draw a little bit of connections, maybe somewhat inappropriately, to real life things, it's almost similar to the way the American government made what's the term I'm looking for here? Reservations for Native Americans, being like, yeah, you can have your own freedom, but only on this specific bit of land will allot you, and basically you're going to still be surrounded by us and in a way under us anyway. So it's like, it's this interesting thing where, again, we've had that come up a lot, where the Tower natives were really repressed by Zahard's empire in a ton of different and brutal ways. And one, again, interesting way here is that they said, oh yeah, you can have your, what are essentially reservations here, you can have your walls, and you can live there in peace and coexistence. But even though they get to make their own rules and stuff inside the walls, they're still stuck, trapped in this tower, surrounded by Zahard's empire. So again, it's another very interesting thing with the world building of Tower of God going on here. But they mentioned that most of the walls at this point, they either don't have a sealed chamber anymore, and I don't know what kind of sense that makes. Did the person being sealed there, did they die? Was the chamber destroyed? I don't quite understand that. But they most either don't have a sealed chamber anymore, or they don't have a person who can unlock it anymore. And we know that there were people with tokens that could unlock it. And I thought that meant that somebody with a token could unlock any of them, and that there were multiple people with tokens at each wall, but apparently not, because Kane is the only one that can unseal Doan at this point, and without her, Doan is stuck there for forever. But it's mentioned again next by sooo that there are only 3 walls left that are totally intact. Only 3 walls left that have both the sealed chamber and somebody who can unseal it, including Doan's. So I would assume that Cha's is probably another one of those. Also, we get the explanation of the reason that was hinted at last chapter, which I was excited about. The reason that sooo and Kelhelm, their group, doesn't want to wake up Doan and Cha, why they want to leave them to, as Kelhelm said, rest in peace, is because they believe that if Doan or Cha wake up, they'll probably want to go take revenge. But Zahard's empire now is even stronger than Zahard's empire was way back at Genesis. So if they did wake up and say, oh, we're going to get revenge for our fallen comrades, they would just get destroyed by the Empire even more easily than they would have before. So Kelhelm wants them to stay sealed so they don't just go die anyway. Being sealed's a better fate than being dead for them. So that's really, really interesting. When deciding what to do, Hatsu's just like, well, let's just let them out anyway, though. They shouldn't be sealed. And Baum takes a similar stance. I'm kind of with Baum. I agree with his stance here, where being sealed seems like it's just too cruel a fate. We can wake them up, and we can try to save them from being killed and rushing into their deaths. So I like this, because Baum's group is eventually probably going to be the ones that gather all of these allies together and find a way to take down the Empire. So again, really, really cool that he wants to wake Doan here. And another reason he wants to wake Doan, even more than it being a cruel fate, is just the logistics and kind of a smart move here. Baum decides, if we don't wake up Doan, Calivan's going to wake up Doan. And it's better that we wake her up and try to convince her to work with us than Calivan wake her up and kill her, or try to kill her. So either way, whether he really would prefer for her to stay sealed or not, it's not even really a choice anymore. He has to wake her up, because if he doesn't, Calivan's going to do it, and he needs to be the one to get there first, pretty much. From there we move into this part of the chapter where the townspeople want to kill Kane so that Doan could never be awoken, because if Doan can never be awoken, they don't really have to worry about drawing Zahard's attention, or the attention of these intruders who might try to free her or anything. So to cling to their peace and coexistence, they don't want even a possibility of Doan being awakened anymore. But as White theorizes and says here, as White says, this is not a good idea. This is only going to draw out Calivan. So those people, by threatening to kill Kane, are going to end up getting themselves killed and getting Doan released. So yeah, as White said, they kind of bring this all on themselves here. And Bomb's group bursts out of prison to go try to do what they're doing, of course. We get to see Chairman Koer, who I don't believe is the same person who was king before. It seems like a lot of time has passed since then. And I guess because they're not as powerful as Kane, I guess they age more normally. So they've had multiple generations die off since then. And Chairman Koer interrogates Kane pretty much, asking, like, is she working with Calavan? Like, where is Calavan? And in the end, he decides to offer her an alternative to death, to seal herself, because if she is sealed, then it continues the peace and coexistence, just like what her sister wanted. And of course, it really isn't just like what her sister wanted. This isn't the peace she fought for, where they all just forget her and turn on her and everything. So she finally, after all this prodding and being broken down, Kane finally relents and calls out for Calavan. So again, this is great. I love this story. We had this, and it's only been a few chapters since we've met Kane, but it's a story where we've been able to connect with her and see her slowly being worn down. First not being able to see her sister, which is more of a minor inconvenience, then people disrespecting her sister, which is a bit more personal, to now them completely turning on her. So we see her get sort of chipped away at until finally she calls out for Calavan, and he has his, if he were the hero, the heroic moment where he pulls the Luffy moment where he's like, oh, you've called out for me, now it's time to go kick ass. So I like this, where we're seeing Calavan, who is totally not the good guy here because he's just using her to try to get to her sister to kill her. And he caused all these problems for her to begin with because the riot started where they disrespected her sister because of Calavan. The place was shut down so she couldn't see her sister because of Calavan. So again, he has, whether totally on purpose or not, caused all of this to break her down little by little until she calls out to him so that he can come in, play the hero, and then kill her sister. It's such a cool way to write Calavan, I think. But then we learn a bit from Bomb's group before the chapter ends. Hatsu and White have gone after Calavan, and they said after they retrieved the sword. I thought that Donghei was still with... I don't know what they mean by retrieve the sword, because I thought Donghei was still with Hatsu. I was going to say maybe they had to run, pick up their weapon somewhere before they carry on, but Rak had his weapon with him. Kun still had all his lighthouses and stuff. I'm pretty sure we saw Donghei still with Hatsu, so I'm not sure exactly what it's meant there by after they get the sword they're going after Calavan. But it's cool that it's Hatsu and White. It's really cool. And then Bomb is, of course, going to try to stop the sort of sealing/execution, and he uses the Thrissa to fight guards. And I like the development here where, of course, when Thrissa first happened, Bomb said, okay, now I can use Thrissa physically. This is really powerful, but I can't use it very fast and I can't control it very much. And we see through his internal monologue here, the Bomb still can't really control it that well, but it seems like he's doing much better with it. So it's good to see that he's like, okay, I have this new power, I need to use it to make it my own, I can't just pull it out and expect things to work perfectly. Again, my last bit of notes here is that the comments on the chapter, scrolling down after reading, made a really good point. There's always a traitor on the team in Tower of God. So yeah, point made, there's always a traitor. But I loved this. All of this was great. As for the blog, I really didn't feel like there was any new information that added anything to this discussion, really. So nothing really important in the blog went down. But yeah, I absolutely love this, and I would give it maybe even a 9.5. What should I call it? 9.5 mystery swords, because that's something it's stuck in my brain because I just said it recently. 9.5 out of 10. I really loved this one. It was really hype and exciting. Plus, like I mentioned, with a lot of the parts, there were some really cool ways that some of the characters have been written here. Bomb is a character that throughout different points in the story has been more hit and miss depending on what point in the story we're at with him. But I thought that Bomb was handled here well. I'm liking the stuff with White and with Hatsu. I really love Kelhelm, and I love the stuff with his group. All the backstory stuff and the world building was incredibly good. That's some of, like I said, the backstory stuff and the world building stuff is typically some of the chapters I enjoy most in Tower of God. And I guess they most remind me of the early days with what made Tower of God the most special and unique a bit. It kind of harkens back to some of that a bit. Like I was saying earlier in this arc, where I was like, some of the things feel just early early season 2 again, it almost feels like. So yeah, some of the stuff recently has just been great. And the Kane and Calavan stuff I think is really, really good in hindsight, and just seeing how it's built in a really cool way where some of it is sort of like, I don't want to say convenience, but some of it's a little bit of coincidence. But the way Calavan is sort of worn down Kane, and the way Kane as a character has been worn down a bit until this moment where she calls out to Calavan, and if it were written a different way, he'd be the hero coming in, but instead all of this is his fault to begin with, and he's only doing this so that he can betray her and kill her sister anyway. So I think that's all really cool. So yeah, and we get more mysteries, like the mystery with the traitor and who they could be, and if they are potentially the 4th Squadron commander now. But yeah, that is it. Gonna end it here. Just a reminder again, 9.5 out of 10, even though the scores really don't mean all that much. But either way, gonna try to get this up as soon as possible now, so like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this week's chapter, what you thought of my thoughts on it and all that. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Like I said, these reviews, once the holiday season's over, they'll probably be on Tuesdays now if I change the day that I do Magical Girl Raising Project, which I think I will, and also on Mondays I'm going to be doing reactions to One Piece and Boku no Hero Academia along with this, so all of those 3, I'll probably do this first and then those 2, but it depends on what exact times they all come out. Sunday nights, Monday morning, somewhere in there for all of those. But I'll try to keep you updated on the community tab, which is where I do most of my updates now. But also, if you want to, follow on Twitter, and I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel and talk to you there. If you want a link to our Discord server to talk to me or more of us on Discord, just ask and I can give you a link to that. We can all talk there. And if you'd like to help support the channel in this holiday season and help keep it going monetarily, if you just are somebody who watches the videos and are part of the community, that's amazing. But if you wanted to help chip in and help me to afford to keep doing these videos, then it's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. But yeah, no pressure either way. Thank you so much for watching these. I really enjoyed making this one. And yeah, that's it. Thank you again, and I'll see you all next time.